or something, and then just link, have a kind of like this, a sampler, I guess, if you will,
Hmm.
where you link to the repos on online. That way, they're available to be maintained in one central place, but people can kind of still get an index of them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, well, that's a good idea. I mean, we as a community and the staff in general has a challenge in that users are not always able to find these things. They
right.
don't even know they exist sometimes.
Yeah, well, and even though they're included in the download, some people don't even realize that there's sample code in the download.
I know. I mean,
So
it says right here samples, but a lot of people
well,
don't read them. They're like,
yeah.
oh,
Well,
no, there's nothing there.
and that is relatively new. I mean, that hasn't always been around, and that's one of the reasons why it is in the simulator now. It's like, there's docs and there's samples and there's forums,
You know
so
what they need to
here's
do?
some resources.
This thing right here needs to go throb, throb, jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. Click me. Stop asking questions.
Right.
Okay. All right. So today we're talking about cars, and we'll do that for sure. I've listed these other ones here as 148. I'm going to mention them because they're all simple and people can just dig in. So distance joint, pulley joint, rope joint, and pivot. These samples are in the sampler now. I have mentioned them on show 148. That's today, right?
Right.
So feel free to dig in. Whether or not we will treat these and examine them in the next half hour is not very likely, but they're very simple examples that you can simply take a look at on your own. The one I want to cover today, the one I enjoy, is the sample car, or the simple car, that is, which is nothing more than a box with two images that I have just taken. I've taken the Corona logo and I've put a round body on them. And you know what? I realized that this is a little bit hard to see on my screen. Is that coming through okay?
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
too
You can
small
see.
for the Hangout?
It's kind of small, but it's. I mean, you could get the point.
All right. So, well, I was struggling with getting enough room to play around on, and yet
Mhm.
having the car be big enough for you to see what's going on. So in this example, as previously, there are buttons to make the wheels spin, and there is a button to control whether or not gravity is on. All right, let me take a look. I'm sorry, I have to bring up the code. So this code exists in the examples simple car folder, which will have a download link later, as suggested by you. Maybe not on this release, but in a future release, simply click the Get It Here or something button that's coming. But for now, you can look in Simple Car and open Main Lua, if I can manage to do that. There we are. And
Yeah. Last time we talked about turning this into a game.
that should definitely happen.
Yeah.
It says here I've been
Just
looking at this for 52 days. I'm not sure why it says that, but the lower left-hand corner of my editor here,
yeah.
52 days. That's not true. All right, so as you can see here, it's formatted very much like a regular main Lua file. I mean, it's got the various libraries that I'm requiring, physics. I've got a external module called Car Builder, which does all the work of building the car. I have another module called Ground Builder, whose job it is to draw this extremely beautiful platform. And I have another module called Easy Button that encapsulates the code to turn images into very simple push or toggle buttons. And I will show you this code. It's very, very simple. It's not robust, but it's accessible in the sense that even new programmers, new developers to Corona should be able to read this and understand what's going on, and then quickly see that it isn't great code, but it is acceptable in this case. The layout of this whole file here, main Lua, is only 71 lines long, so it's a very short example that you should be able to parse through. But besides the header, which is the me doing the requires, what I do here at the top is I basically start physics. I set the gravity to 0, 0 because I don't want to have any gravity to start. I have an optional line on line 15, and by the way, you can read this. Yes, okay, I see it looks okay in the
Yeah.
in the camera view there. So you can set hybrid mode if you wish, and let me do that just to show folks what it looks like. So let's relaunch. I'm on Windows, so I'm doing a Control R, but I think it's Command R on OS 10 to relaunch or reload the simulator. And if you run this, you'll be doing that a lot if you make changes. So relaunch, click on Simple Car, and now we can see in hybrid mode, we can see the bodies, the outlines. These have turned green. They got that little axis alignment thing here to show us the X and Y axes for these particular objects, oriented. And then it's a little bit hard to see in this example, but you can see the car body, and you can see the linkage between the joints and the car body. So let me turn that off again. And then after that, it's my preference generally when I call display new rect or display new circle or new text or any of these builder functions that Corona supplies to create rectangles and circles and text, I prefer to pass in a display group as the first argument. And so in this example and in all future examples, typically the way I will produce these is I will create a display group. And let me back up. The reason I do this in the example for folks is because a lot of folks are going to go, okay, I had fun with this, I made some changes, now I'm going to go put this in a composer scene. And so if I've already primed them by saying, here's a display group, you need to pass that in, you're going to put all your objects in the display group, they're one step away from saying, all right, now I need to get the scene group from Composer and pass that in. And it's just, you got to do that, otherwise your content won't be managed. And so I've provided the examples in such a way that it's very easy to go from doing this to simply passing scene group in wherever it says group in the examples.
So rather than having to add all the individual items to the scene, they're just having to add one group.
Right. I mean, I see a lot of people do they call the function to build it, and then they say group : insert the object. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand why people do that. I mean, I guess it's straightforward because that's the way they're thinking, but all builders take a first argument where you can just pass a display group in, and it automatically inserts it. And there used to be a reason why you'd want to do that or not want to do that, but today, with Graphics 2.0, the default behavior of automatic insertion is the one that most people want anyways. So I can't think of a motivation to split it into two steps.
I mean, I could think hypothetically, like I think, if you're building something where, let's say, a parameter of a secondary object, so it's dependent, let's say you've got two circles, and the one is, 20 pixels in diameter, and you want the next one to, or it, is based upon some sort of user input, so you want it to be scalable, and the second object needs to be bigger than that, but then it needs to be placed behind it. That would be a case, maybe, where you would, after the fact, need to insert it into the group. But that's fairly rare, and I'm totally with you. I think it's a great way to compress a composer scene, is to eliminate all those extra lines.
Layering, I agree with you. Then they'd want to do it subsequently. But to me, if you're controlling layering, there's better ways to do it than the order of the insert. I mean, I don't know. I see it all the time, and then I always tell people, oh, you don't need to do that. Here, do this instead. I'm going to do that instead.